Okay, so we will go ahead and get started. Hopefully, the other people who signed up remember and trickle in. If not, then this might be a relatively short meeting. Just like last week, I am Drew. I'm one of the program delivery partners for First Lego League Challenge and Explore here in Alabama. We also have on the call Jamie McClung. And Jamie is our first senior mentor here in Alabama.
Yeah, I was about to ask, do you want me to do?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
So I'm the first senior mentor in Alabama. I've also coached teams for 5 years. We had some pretty good successful years and won a couple of state championships and gone to some international competitions, including the World Festival one year. So then as I moved up and now have a FRC team and now we're adding an FTC team. So I got a good wide experience with nearly all the programs. And so that kind of helps me to mentor and help people out as they come into our great community.
So the flow for tonight, because today we're talking about team management in a remote environment. And that could be a lot of things. That could be, the whole team is remote. Nobody's in the co-located. It could be, hey, I've got a kid who is going to be out for 2 weeks because they have to quarantine. Just kind of how do you incorporate the whole team when physical co-location is not always possible? So I'm going to start us off by kind of going through some of the resources that First has to offer. When I upload this later, I'll also make sure that all those links are available where possible. And then Jamie's going to kind of lead a Q&A for if you have specific questions about your situation, you can ask them here. And then we can answer them. And then when there are no more questions, there are no more questions, and the session will be over. So I'm going to start by sharing a presentation. There we go. There's the slides. Jamie, are you able to see the slide? Yep. Okay. So Taylor, our other program delivery partner, my wife, she put these together earlier in the week before she realized she couldn't make it at the start tonight. So I will be presenting what we both looked at. I'll click on these in a moment and we'll look at them. But so we have two resources here that are documents. One is just resources for mentoring and coaching these teams, and the other is about being a virtual mentor. So we'll come back to the slide in a minute. We're also going to talk about the training modules that are available in your First dashboard, and we're going to talk about a couple of forums you can get to. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen because it'll be much easier if I share it this way. Okay, so we should see the presentation again now. Yes. Jamie, are you able to see it? Yep. Okay. I'm going to escape out of this and go back just to the dashboard here. So here is, and Jamie, you're able to see the window still? Okay. So the first resource is called Remote Mentor Resources. So when you look at this document, there's a lot of things on here, and it's broken into sections. In the first section, we have COVID season guidance by program. Since we are a First Lego League Challenge, we're going to look at First Lego League. I'm just going to click on that link. It's going to take me to this document. One thing to notice is that this was last updated on December 4th, 2020. So there will be references to Game Changers and Replay, which are both last season's games. Shouldn't make a huge difference for this season to last season, but this is the guidance that First is shared with everybody. So we have a section on materials management and handling. So maybe your school has restrictions on, one student can handle one device. We have content. So how do you deliver your content? Didn't mean to click on that. How do you make sure students are collaborating? How do you make sure that you and other adults are collaborating with your students? How do you get engaged in your community? And how do you participate in events? So again, this document is from last year, but it still contains, as far as I'm aware, First's most recent guidance on this topic. And that's accessible through the Mentor and Coaching Remotely resources. There's another document linked in here, which is actually a blog post, again, from November of 2020. And this is guidance for FIRST robotics teams. So this is more geared toward FRC, but there could be some useful information in here for you as an FLL coach. We have some mentor resources. So the virtual mentor presentation is a guideline for kind of, if you want to run a virtual meeting, how should you structure it? So it's just a very simple agenda that you can kind of tweak with and make it your own. Talk about the FIRST Mentor Network. The inclusion and accessibility is really important. It talks about how to make sure you're maintaining FIRST commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion with your team through these meetings. And we'll talk more about that in another resource. And then there's some volunteer resources down here, which wouldn't apply to you as an FLL coach. So that's one of the two documents. Let me close these out. There's a lot of resources linked there. And then there's the virtual mentor presentation PDF. And this is just that same document, 5 minutes of welcome introductions, 5 minutes of an icebreaker, 30 minutes of the presentation, and then a 5-minute wrap up question takeaway. So it's a good place to start if you're just kind of getting started with these remote meetings, or if for some reason you need to bring in team members virtually. So those are the documents. The next resource is a training module. So for this, I'm going to take us over to the dashboard. So this is what you should see the first time you go to your dashboard after you've logged in. I can see all the teams I'm affiliated with down here, both of my gigawatts there, and my name up here that I know that this is my dashboard. So one of the resources that you have available to you through the dashboard are training modules. So if you click on your name and go down to my profile, you'll come to this page. And the useful link over here is this certifications link. And when I click on that, I'll show you another way to get to this page in case you don't have that certifications. This brings me to the FIRST Training Center. Now, if I am not able to get to it that way, if I look on volunteer registration, I might be able to see a training and certification button. So there should be two ways to get to the same place. The first way is probably going to be your most likely. If I scroll down through here and I see that we have all these trainings down here, all these, I can go to courses and go to the course catalog. And again, you'll see Game Changers is referenced here. A lot of these materials were made for the Game Changers season. They just haven't been updated yet. In FIRST University, we have a training on equity, diversity, and inclusion. So making sure that even though your meeting is remote or virtual, making sure that all of your students still have access. A good example would be if you have a student that has some sort of hearing impairment, just making sure that student has headphones that they can use just to make the meeting more accessible to them. We also have a course on mentoring and coaching with FIRST, and then a course on remote mentoring with FIRST. So these are all three just different modules FIRST offers that you can go through and take if you have questions or want to learn more about one of these topics. But this is one of the resources available to you as a coach with FIRST. So that's one big resource. The other resources, we're going to go back to our dashboard, and I'm just going to go straight to it. firstinspires.org. It looks like it has logged me out. I'm logged back in. Perfect. So I'm back on my teams. If you have registered any of your teams, that means you've paid the $225 for First Lego League Challenge. You can access Thinkscape. And Thinkscape is phenomenal because you can find your team. So here it is for Explore. I don't have challenge teams, but I can go to it. And there's a couple of things on here I can see. One thing I can see is I've got all these getting starteds and challenge resources. So these are just digital modules to kind of help you work through your season and learn more about kind of what can you do to best deliver your content and how can you structure it. General management tips. What is your team journey? What are some best practices? And so these are in general, these aren't specific to like virtual and remote meetings, but they're just more general to your first teams. But one thing that you can access through this page is your course community. So if we go to our community, anybody who has access to Thinkscape, so any of your FRC, FTC, FL Challenge, FL Explore, I think even FL Discover, this is a forum where you can post questions, see what other people are talking about. There hasn't been a ton of movement in these forums, but keep in mind that this does apply to all of the FIRST programs, not just First Lego League Challenge. So that's one forum you have. And again, that can connect you with other teachers, specifically teachers and coaches, because they'll be the ones with access to Thinkscape. So that's one of them that's here in these resources, kind of how to access it. It's the team course community. And finally, the last resource I'm going to point out are the FIRST forums. These are a separate set of forums. These are not at all tied to Thinkscape. These are not tied to your team registration. These are forums that anybody can go and sign up for. And you'll see they're broken down by First Robotics Competition, First Lego League Challenge, and First Lego League Explore. First Tech Challenge has a separate forum, which is on a different website. But if I go to First Lego League Challenge here, I can see all these different topics, core values, the project, robot game strategy, rules and missions, programming, products and equipment, curriculum, miscellaneous, where anything doesn't fit, starting a team, coaching a team, mentoring, and then different events. And you can even see over here when the last post was made. So if I were curious about rules and missions, I can go here and see, okay, remote control is not allowed in the competition area. What are they talking about here? I can read up on that topic. And I can see that it was last posted on September 5th, so about 4 days ago. And again, the nice thing about this forum is that this can be anybody. So parents, coaches, other mentors, referees, judges. You can get a lot of different points of view here, and you can see what other people are running into. And it's handy to see when the last post was, for example, M10 cell phone. M10 cell phone is not a mission in Cargo Connect. It is from the replay season. And you can see, oh, it was last posted in February. But those are some of our resources that we are kind of wanting to make sure coaches are aware of, because they could help in whatever little way possible. And again, when we share this on YouTube, we'll make sure to get as many links onto that page as possible. Are there any questions about any of the resources that I've referenced? Jamie, do you have anything to add to any of that?
Spacebar wasn't working. I just was going to, whenever you were ready to turn it over, I was just going to discuss what we did for the season last year and how we were able to make it through, and then what we're trying to do this year, and then open it up. And a lot of it can be your situation and answering questions for your situation. So if you're ready for me to go, Drew, I'll just start with all that.
All right, I think I'm good on this then, so I will turn it over to you, Jamie.
Okay. So last year our school met in person. So a couple of things the schools did themselves is they had the defoggers. So they came around and sprayed inside the rooms once a week. They pretty much, custodians were coming in on the weekend, and that there was that. I think a lot of people saw it, the little mister that came around and misted everything. We would cover up the tables so they didn't get the mist on the mat that they had so much. But everything else was open for them to mist. We also had put in filters for our ventilation system. So those were some things that our school did. And then also we required mask. And so we stayed with mask, and then students were quarantined if they were anywhere near someone that had tested positive or was getting checked. So we had a lot of quarantines going in and out of particular students, but we never stopped with our whole student body. It seemed like at some point it was just, hey, we got to see if we can make it now kind of deal. It got interesting at Christmas time, but we've made it through there. And so with that being said, we were pretty, as far as things that we were touching. So we were fortunate enough to have like a laptop cart, and the kids had their one-to-one devices. So we had wipes, so everything got wiped down. If they used it, the plan was get a wipe and wipe it down. If you used it that day, at the end of the day, we kind of stopped and said, hey, wipe down everything that you've touched in this building or where it is, and kind of cleaning up after that point. They had the mask on, so we didn't really do a lot of candy and food and stuff like we had in the past with meetings, but we still did after school meetings. We went outside to practice talking and presentation skills as much as we could. When the weather was nice, we'd just separate into a big circle or line them up and let them spread out 3 feet and do their presentations and practice stuff on that way. And so that was kind of the main things with the robot. I mean, it's hard to disinfect every single Lego piece. So we just, we had us at the end of the practice, we had them wash their hand. When they came in, wash their hands. When they left, they washed their hands. And we would wipe down the main robot with Clorox kind of wipe stuff. But, we couldn't get every single piece of Lego. So.
And Jamie, I'll add that if you're in a position to do this, if your school has funds available, or if you know somebody that has funds available through some kind of COVID grant, those little UV wand boxes can run between $100 and $200, and it might be a worthwhile investment if that's something you have resources for. Of course, if you don't, it's obviously not going to be worth the investment. But if you have that available to you, it's definitely something you could use to improve your COVID mitigation.
And so those were our main keys, was the mask and cleaning as much as we could, as on a reasonable basis. If you're dealing with middle school students, making sure they just wash hands, wipe stuff down. And if anybody was at any point in the school, parents got sick or anybody was there, we were quarantining students. And if the student was quarantined, we just had them log in on a Google Meet and join the class or join after school practice through a Google Meet, and just kept them up to date with what's going on and tried to give them assignments based off what they were working on. So like beginning of the year, everybody's trying to do and work on everything. And so as we get towards competition time, people kind of specialize a little bit more in certain areas. So it depends on when they were getting quarantined. If it was like when the open area, we may spend, look at our project research, read this, work up, do some game, come up with a game for core values that we can do, just feeding them things that they can do on the internet or by researching with their computer at home. That's if they have internet at home. If they don't have internet at home, we also did a couple of cases where we loaned out a Lego robot kit and let them take it home and just work through tutorials and programming through that way, because she didn't have much internet, but she took home a robot and had it built and line following before she brought it back, and she was on top of it. So she had a great time with that. Brought it back. She wiped it down when she took it, brought it back to us. We wiped it down again and just recycled it back into the program. So that's kind of what we have done in the past, and we're doing those same things this year.
And Jamie, to add on to that, one trap that a lot of teams fell into last year was they would have some students who were always in person and some students who were always virtual. And they kind of, like I said, fell into the trap of the in-person students built the robot, the virtual students did the project, and they ran into an issue where these kids knew nothing about the project, these kids knew nothing about the robot. And it's very much in the spirit of First Lego League Challenge that every student be familiar with and work on every part of it. So you want to be very careful about saying, well, these students will do this, these students will do this. You really want to find a way so that every student can contribute meaningfully to every part, even when they're not co-located.
So if that situation happened to me, I would say for robot game, you could treat it like we had to do virtual robot game presentations. So I would treat that with your virtual students, let them be your practice judges and watch the games and score the games. So the students had to film it and they would get feedback from the other team members about, hey, I couldn't see this, or this didn't look right. So they're learning about the robot game and the rules. They're helping their team make sure their video looks right. So I would get them active, even though they couldn't actually touch the robot. They could score it, make sure the score is right. They would be active in all parts of the robot game, even if they weren't just touching the robot itself. And then vice versa, if the project, they could do their presentation, their part of the presentation, have the kids watch it, and then let them ask some questions. So like robot game members ask questions of the project. So, prepare them for judging by asking them questions and preparing questions. So you could kind of get them to help judge and be practice judges for the other group. And that way you would be getting a little bit of everything, not as good as it would be if everybody was in person, but they are getting to learn what's going on with the other group and what's happening. So if they do get any judges, they can say, yes, we did this since we were virtual. So after that, really, in this situation, and I know some of you may watch it later on YouTube, if you got questions, we can definitely look at your situation and offer advice, because it's everybody's situation is going to be different than what mine is. So we kind of hope by showing you where those resources were that first gave you, by me kind of giving you an example of what my situation was like, and then we can look at your situation if you got something that you would like to ask questions about, and we'll be happy to answer it and come up with the best possible solution that we can all come up with. As we say in the first Lego League, it takes a village to raise a kid. So we like this community, and first is what's one of the great things. So we can all put our heads together and try and come up with solutions. So Decretia, did you have any questions?
And I do not have any in our absentee question form.
Yep.
So there's nothing that was asked ahead of time.
Yep. So on the recording, if you watch this later, please just reach out to us and with your whatever question you got, and we'll dig into your situation and see if we can come up with something to help. And that's all I got.
Yeah. That being said, unless you have any questions, that is the end of the content we have to present. But like I said, if anybody's watching this now or after the fact, just shoot us emails and we will be more than happy to start a conversation.